Someone around you, if not you, might have described Nigeria as one lacking the maintenance culture at some point in time. What is culture? Culture is basically the way of life of a people. To therefore say that a country lacks the maintenance culture is to basically infer that the citizens that make up that country haven't imbibed maintenance in their everyday life. To maintain is to preserve the pristine conditions of an asset. In other words, you implement some set of policies and procedures that seek to preserve the life of that asset such that its state is as close to the state it was when it was purchased. Maintenance to me was quite very different. I didn't think of maintenance as maintaining all the functions of an asset. All that mattered to me was to keep the basic functions of that asset intact. And the world, as long as I care, could basically have stopped. Not until when I got into school, I had a car that for me, maintaining that car was to see that only the basic functions of moving me from one point to another wasn't intact. It didn't matter if the air conditioners were working. It didn't matter if the headlamps were well lit. All that mattered was that it moved me from point A to point B. But that can't be all there is about maintenance. There are too many Nigerians who thought the way I used to think, or who even still think that way. But guess what? In the process of time, I realized that that kind of mindset will not serve me well in the future. So I basically began to work on myself, such that maintenance to me is now in a different light. And I'll see maintenance as the totality of an asset and not just its basic functions. When you look around you in our dear country today, you see the lack of maintenance in just about everything. You walk down the streets and you see buildings that have remained unpainted years after they had been built. Or you even look at our national assets, the National Stadium, federal buildings are in shambolic state. No one just seemed to care about preserving the pristine condition of those assets. But guess what? It's not just the fault of those leaders who are charged with the responsibility of keeping those assets. They went to the same school like you and I, and they were cultured in the same society. The way I used to think that assets preservation was just about the basic functions. Some of these politicians also think that way. There are many Nigerians who reason that way that have been governors at some point in our time. Some have been even presidents. Some, most of them, in fact, are top government functionaries. It's not that they meant evil. It's just that their culture and the condition of their mind is such that maintenance just meant keeping the basic assets of an asset to function. So what does that mean? If you focus on the basic functionalities, it's just a question of time for those functionalities to be eroded, because those parts of the assets that you refuse to cater for will in turn hurt those parts that you are concerned about. So how do we need to approach this? We must turn a new leaf and teach our children not just to think of maintenance as something that we should do out of convenience. It is something that must become a part of our lives. And we must show these kids by doing things differently. If you as a parent need to service your car after every 5,000 miles, don't delay it. Don't let it be clocked 6,000 before you maintain it. If you need to fix that crack on your wall, don't wait till the crack becomes widened. Fix it on time. Fix things as soon as they are broken. If we do that in our private recesses, in the corners of our office, in our homes, in our cars, on our streets, it is very likely that this attitude will soon become a new lifestyle for us. And ultimately, our culture will gradually change for the better. Maintaining an asset is very critical. I remember the National Stadium Abuja was built for billions of naira. And I remember it hosted the All-African Games in 2003. But what has become of that stadium today? That stadium is a shadow of its old self. Things like this should not even happen in our country. The reality is that we would have to renovate or refurbish that stadium. The money we would spend on refurbishment could have been spent on education, could have been spent on healthcare. But because we do not maintain, we do things that spend money needlessly in ways that we could have avoided. I urge you to change your lifestyle, to change your thought processes as regards maintenance. This is one thing I'm also grappling with, and I'm making efforts to learn and to get better at maintaining assets. If I have a little scratch on my car, I need to fix it on time. Otherwise, I get used to seeing that scratch, and soon enough, it doesn't matter anything to me. This is what psychologists call learned helplessness. A state where people have become acculturated to wrong things such that they can't tell the difference between right and wrong. I urge you to turn a new leaf, and together we can build a culture, a new culture for Nigeria, such that the story of our country will change from one lacking the maintenance culture to one that has fully embraced it. It's been Pathways. God bless you, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.